Hello, welcome to Transit. I'm Dave McLauchlan. This week we're at the SteamRail depot at the old railway workshops in Newport, and we'll be taking a look at the behind-the-scenes work that goes into the preservation of Victoria's steam heritage. Keith, tell us a bit about SteamRail Victoria and how it got started.
Okay, SteamRail started back in 1965, its predecessor being the Steam Preservation Coordinating Committee. Its development occurred because of this engine behind us. It was the ex-commissioner's engine and it was about to be withdrawn from service. A number of enthusiasts wanted to keep it in service for mainline use, and they approached the then railway commissioners and sought approval. It was obtained, and from those early days we were able to clean engines, paint engines, and eventually going to carriages before 1978-79 when we started to get outside firms to do our maintenance, and from that we've started to do our own maintenance from the early 80s.
And now you actually employ people of your own to do your maintenance?
Yes, we have 6 employees at the moment, 3 of them full-time, 2 of them part-time and 1 casual.
What's the membership of the organisation?
We have over 1,100 members, of them approximately 120 as volunteers.
What tours do you run?
We run what's called the Vintage Train, where it's available for the general public to travel on. We operate approximately once every month during certain periods of the year, 2 or 3 times a month. On top of that, we also have our charters to any firm that's interested in, or social club interested in hiring a train for a fundraising or a weekend out or a day out as required.
Apart from the tours, what is your main task here at SteamRail Victoria?
The main task really is just maintaining and restoring the items of rolling stock that we have in service, and liaising with other societies and organisations with a common interest, the government and tourism bodies, just to operate these trains throughout Victoria.
And how do you go about getting carriages and engines to restore and keep running?
Initially, the items of rolling stock were allocated to us, in which we were custodians for the state. There are still a number of those items, but these days, when we acquire equipment, we tend to have to buy it. This year we've purchased 6 carriages from South Australia. There are some sleeping carriages that we've purchased from South Australia as well, ex-Victorians, that were sold back in 1989 to a kindred organisation over at Victor Harbour, and some Southern Aurora sleeper cars. We're bringing them back into service as well.
Tell us about some of the things you've got here in your workshops here and that people are working on, like the bogies they're restoring at the moment.
Yes, well, for a number of our locomotives, such as our diesels, we have to have bogies maintained to mainline standard. Now that requires a lot of time and effort, particularly a lot of this equipment we get is in generally a rundown and poor state of condition, and it takes a fair bit of time. Then we've also got our carriage bogies and also all the maintenance on the undergear for the steam locos. Basically that's a very specialised field and only a handful of people work in that area.
Can you tell us what exactly a bogie is?
A bogie is really a frame that has the wheels attached to it that can pivot underneath the carriage or a locomotive. These are restricted to mainly electric locomotives, electric carriages, ordinary country cars and diesel locomotives.
So it's not just steam and carriages you preserve here, it's early electric and diesel?
Yes, we do definitely preserve diesels. We have 4 operational mainline diesels at the moment. There is the 5th one undergoing restoration at the moment, the B class, number 72. That was started back in 1995 and it'll be at least another 12 months before that's back in service. There is a number of swing door carriages and take carriages in service. We have 1 swing door finished, the second one is underway at the moment. They believe that will be about another 12 to 18 months before that is running. And take carriages, we have 4 of them in service.
And what do you use the diesel locomotives for?
We do run occasional trips for the general public ourselves with the diesels, but primarily they're used for charter work. It's not as easy to hire a diesel off the railways these days. and it is a lot more cost effective to come to an organisation such as ourselves.
Hiring out locomotives and doing work for other companies with your paid staff here, that's part of what earns you money to keep going?
Yes, that is a supplementary income source for us. The main income source being running the trains ourselves or charter work. That's the locomotives and carriages all together, and arranging for a particular customer. But as I said, it's supplementary income, and it does assist us in going forward.
Do you get grants and other things like that?
SteamRail has never really actively chased grants. It had received one grant back in 1983 for the Victorian 150th anniversary celebrations, but everything that you see that we've got running or around here today, if it's not allocated, it's owned by us, and it has been purchased by money raised by SteamRail and its volunteer workforce.
What sort of expense does it cost to actually restore a steam engine?
It depends. The last one we restored back to service, this little girl came back into service last year. It cost us about $40,000. It was a major overhaul, and it needed a lot of undergear work to be done to her. For some of the bigger engines, anything up to about $250,000. Once again, we're fortunate that a lot of our input is done by volunteers, and it does keep the cost down. We do have another locomotive which we're currently undergoing restoration at the moment. It's the A2, which is just immediately to my left. That will look at spending about $250,000 doing her up. She needs new tyres to be fitted to her main driving wheels, boiler repairs, frame repairs, and the general maintenance requirements. Now, expect to have this running by middle of 2001. It's going to take a concerted effort, but we've got a team of very enthusiastic volunteers ready to undertake that, and we will need to put on some extra paid staff to expedite the restoration project of this locomotive.
How long does an engine last before it needs restoration, or will it keep going as long as it's regularly maintained?
As long as we keep the maintenance up to the engines and keep them to a very high standard, they basically keep going indefinitely. The things that we don't have much control over is the wear and tear on the wheels and the boilers. Certainly with this engine, boilers are plenty. We don't have a problem there. Tyres, they're expensive. We can retire the wheels, but you're looking in the vicinity of $20,000 to $40,000 per locomotive to retire. When it comes to diesels, well, they're a lot easier to get the parts at the moment as they're still so readily available. Basically, if you've got good tyres and a good boiler, they can keep going 30, 40, 50 years without a problem.
Tell us a bit more about the A2 engine you're currently going to be restoring.
Yes, the A2 engine was acquired back in the mid-80s from the park in Warragul. There were 180 of these locomotives built around 1906 to 1921, or thereabouts, and of those only 5 survive. 2 of those in parks and 2 in the museum. We have the 5th one here. It's the only one that's available for restoration at the moment, and it's going to be costing us in the vicinity of $250,000 to restore it.
How are you financing that restoration?
The financing of the restoration has been fairly heavily kicked off by our members donating, raffles, trying to raise money that way, as well as a significant grant for the Federation. This locomotive was used to haul the dignitaries, or one of many locomotives used to haul the dignitaries to Parliament when Parliament was held here in Melbourne. And we believe it's a fitting mark of the Federation, the centenary of Federation, to have this locomotive restored back into service and run like special again with the wooden cars that we still have in service, which were in fact, many of those cars were the same cars used by those dignitaries.
As we can see, you obviously need to shunt things around the yard here. Who do you get to drive the engines?
Our main drivers here are PTC qualified or National Rail qualified drivers who are also members and volunteers of SteamRail. There's approximately 10 of those on the books. Even some suburban drivers are available too.
So there's a lot of keen or qualified people who want to come along and help with the organisation.
Absolutely, yes. It even goes to as far as diesel fitters and maintainers from South Dynon who are volunteers here as well. They're working on diesels and steam locomotives. Yes, we do have quite a strong base of railway employees involved in this organisation.
Now, in terms of training steam drivers, do you do that yourselves, or how do you train steam drivers? Obviously, it's not exactly a lost art, but it's something that's not done normally, so you can't just take a driver from the normal service and have them drive a steam loco for you. How do you go about training people to do that? And are they already regularly qualified drivers?
Yes, they are all regularly qualified drivers. They have to be to operate on the mainline system. Insofar as training, in the recent 5 or 6 years, there have been 2 to 3 schemes of driver training and fireman training that have involved the V-line freight, V-line passenger, training drivers on goods trains and passenger trains throughout the state. They've trained up last year 5 steam drivers and 3 steam firemen, and there was another driver trained up this year.
Why do you actually need fully qualified drivers?
The reason we need fully qualified drivers is purely safety. It's an intricate acquired skill to learn to drive and operate a train safely and to the best possible standards of comfort for the passengers.
What about an ordinary volunteer who comes along and would like to learn how to drive a steam train? Is there an opportunity for that?
Unfortunately, on the main line, it's very limited. Unless you're prepared to join the railways, like myself, and go down that path eventually, that's about the only way you can do it. The other way is simply on a tourist railway. Queenscliff, Puffing Billy, those sorts of organisations, Castlemaine, Moulton, just to name a few. They are about the only way an ordinary volunteer can obtain the skills of driving a steam locomotive or even firing it.
And that's all for our visit here at the SteamRail workshops in Newport. Good night.